hidden weight of stress. When I worked at the Biggest Loser Resort and Movara Fitness Ridge, and I met with thousands of clients one-on-one to discuss their own personal experience with health and weight loss, over 95% had unaddressed chronic stress as the root cause of their inability to maintain their weight loss at home. So I want to explain a little bit why that is. Our society has really normalized chronic stress as a normal part of life, but our body is not designed to be in a constant state of stress. So we're not talking about a lack of willpower here. We're talking about a dysregulated nervous system and how that changes the chemistry in our body. So our bodies are designed to have short bursts of stress. Cortisol raises and our body can go into fight or flight and the stress is over. However, in today's dynamic, the stressors are consistent and constant. They're oftentimes in our place of work. They're oftentimes in an email that we need to respond to or stuck in traffic. And it isn't a threat that we can run away from. It's continual. And oftentimes it's very psychological. And so when we're in these elevated chronic states of stress for long periods of time, again, our body raises cortisol. That is our stress hormone. And unfortunately, oftentimes we don't ever move. And cortisol is designed to help us to have the energy to move. So we have all of this energy circulating throughout our body. And the fuel source for cortisol is glucose. It needs the quick, easy energy. So what does that mean? That means it's going to make us crave sugar or simple carbohydrates, and or it's going to start breaking down our muscle and turning it into the glucose, the sugar that it needs. So that makes it pretty clear and pretty easy to see how chronic elevated states of stress cannot lead to sustainable weight loss. So let's talk about some of the strategies that we can do to help alleviate and get this excess cortisol out of the body so it's not causing us to crave sugar and carbohydrates and it's not breaking down our muscle into glucose. So number one is moving our body. And this is one of the reasons I really like the habit of moving my body 3 times a day for a minimum of that 4 to 5 minutes throughout the day. I find that throughout the day, my levels of stress are building continually. And when I have those moments that I go move my body, that helps get that excess cortisol out. So that is one way in which movement in a way that feels good is very beneficial for weight loss. Usually people associate exercise and the calories burned as the benefit to the exercise. I view it differently. I actually view the main benefit of exercise is getting rid of that excess cortisol. So moving our body, ensuring that we get adequate sleep. When we're in these chronic states of stress, our circadian rhythms get messed up, which means we have high cortisol when we're trying to go to sleep and we notice that our minds are racing. And then when we have our natural dip of cortisol with our circadian rhythms, that's when it's time to wake up and our alarm goes off and we have to drag ourselves out of bed. So in order to reset those circadian rhythms, a few things that we can do is having outside sunlight reaching our eyes, not directly, but having the lumens of light that helps to reset the melatonin and helps reset our circadian rhythms. Having a really good nighttime routine, ensuring that the room that we're sleeping in is a nice cool temperature because our body temperature tends to elevate when we sleep. Those are some things that can really help ensure that we're getting adequate sleep, because oftentimes we don't realize if we're not getting adequate sleep, that is a stressor. If we're dealing with any type of chronic physical pain, that is a constant stress on the body. So we need to address those things. Do we need to go get a massage? Do we need to do some yoga and some stretching? Do we need to do some rehabilitation? Do we need to go see the dentist? So addressing unresolved physical pain, really important. Grief is a part of life, and all of us have to deal with that at various times in our life, and it's not something that we can ignore or push down. Our feelings are meant to be felt and meant to be acknowledged and dealt with. So reaching out to support groups, paying for a professional if that's what we need, but very important to acknowledge our grief, write about our grief. And then in addition to grief, I would put any type of psychological stress or stressors. These are our chronic thoughts, our inner critic, that tend to be pretty persistent. Paying attention to what these chronic thoughts, inner critic, and stressors are, and dealing with them in a way that's useful for us, really important. So I have found for myself that EFT tapping, and it is a process of when our thoughts are firing, we tap on specific meridians that interrupt that firing and wiring in the brain and just help to retrain that thought process. I find that really helpful when I have a very sticky situation that I'm dealing with, and with grief as well. Meditation. Meditation can be sitting in silence, and it can also be going for a walk and doing some type of movement in our meditation. So any mindfulness practice in whatever way works for us, very valuable. And also journaling, I find that very helpful to just have a way to dump the thoughts in our minds. The 3 pillars for health, in my view and in my experience and with the thousands of clients that I've worked with over the year, of course, we have our nutrition component, we have our movement component, and that 3rd piece is stress management. And these are some of the reasons why. We cannot have elevated cortisol and successfully lose weight. Elevated cortisol elevates our insulin. And so when we have elevated insulin levels, that's when we start going into insulin resistance and eventually type 2 diabetes. So these things go hand in hand. We can discuss this more through time. If you would like to visit my website, I have some free resources and material available to help explain this in greater depth. But I hope this gave a little bit of a understanding as to why we have to address stress if we want to successfully have health, vitality, and sustainable weight loss. Thanks for watching. See you next time.